first self-publisher, is there any lessons that you learned in that era that you think can still be applied to an aspiring creator today?
I think some of the same processes are the same in respect that the people that want to get into comics are inspired by comics that they read growing up, and they gravitated towards artistically and creatively, and that's their chosen outlet to express themselves. The self-publishing world that Peter and I started in, it's such a completely different landscape. I mean, at that time, even the distribution system, there was 26 different distributors at that time. Now there's literally one, Diamond, and they make it in many ways virtually impossible for self-publishers to start out, reach the comic stores, to reach the audience and that kind of thing directly. But what we have, obviously, is the internet and digital comics. It's becoming a more accepted, experience for fans to read comic books, to travel with them. Instead of taking a bag like this full of 50 comics and read in a plane flight, they can load them all up on their iPad and do that and access them at, I think, even a little bit more affordable price than what you can buy them for in the stores. Personally, I love to smell them and feel them and do this stuff. But I tell up-and-coming people, I said, go turn to the internet. I mean, you've got your Facebook page, you've got ways to gather an audience, you've got ways to reach fans, expose your creation, and you start building a following to those creations, then you can go to publishing as a backup. Then you have developed a fan base that you can sell the physical copies to, I think. But the internet, I think, is the way to go. Digital comics is the new self-publishing venue. I think that's going to work for a lot of people.
So what happened with Zombie War then? 1992, I think it was,
Mm-hmm.
and then 2013 it came out again?
Yeah, it was funny because I grew up as a huge fan of zombies. I went and saw Night of the Living Dead at the drive-in theater in Maine, where I grew up. So I've been a fan of zombies from the earliest days, and so in between issues of Turtles and the things we were doing, I always like to do something a little bit different. And one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to do a zombie story, and so I came up with this idea with a friend of mine, Tom Schoolin, to have a zombie war, and we came up with a backstory and originally published in black and white. And then it's funny, so I had a zombie comic before Dead World, before so many other zombie stories had come out. My wife, ladies and gentlemen. And so, and then like a few years later, I came up with another concept I love called, I think this was probably mid-90s. I did a story called Fistful of Blood, which had it was a remake of Fistful of Dollars that was like vampires on one side and zombies on the other, and there's this big showdown thing with a lone samurai sort of avenger in the middle. So I feel like way before there was Twilight, way before there was World War Z and all this, and Dead and The Walking Dead, which I'm a big fan of. It's like I was doing zombies, damn it. But when IDW had seen this collection I did about 7 or 8 years ago, which reprinted Zombie War in black and white, and they said, hey, why don't we color it and re-release it and just get the fans to experience it again? And I said yes, and then I still look at my writing in those days and I'm like, eee. But it was a really fun story, and I'm glad to see it back out in color. It was fun to do that again, and I'd love to do another zombie story sometime. So. Yes,
when we last talked, we discussed a bit about the new Turtle series and how it incorporates things from this medium and that medium. Did you see the Turtles Forever movie that had?
Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, and so did that kind of have an influence when going into the new series? Like, hey.
Well, it's weird and interesting, at least. Fox Kids and Fox Family was just ending the like I guess they call it the 2000 series, which is they run it. That whole license was expired and going away, and Viacom I think had bought from Pete the rights to the Turtles at that time. So one final project that they had put in motion was a Turtles Forever movie, and that was to be the last kind of the swan song. And they approached me early in the development. They said, well, this is what we want to do. We want to combine, the 80s Turtles with the 2000 Turtles and take them back to the black and white Turtles in one cartoon. And then we want you and Peter to do this little voiceover thing at the end. And I told Lou, the guy that was putting the whole project together, I said, this is either going to be the worst experiment ever, or it's going to be incredibly awesome. And I hope it works, and I think it worked fabulously. It was, in the world of industry, you can fudge some of the story points and some of the realities and having all these dimensions sort of all crossed over, but I thought it held together really well. And I love seeing them go to the black and white world and that whole thing. So that ended up being one of my favorite movies at that time of the Turtles, versions of the Turtles, and it was hugely popular with fans. I mean, I had people coming up, and I don't know how many copies of that I signed, but that was really fun. So I think that might have had some inspiration, but for sure, Ciro Neely, who's the executive producer on the new series, is a kid that grew up in Philadelphia. His father owned a pizza shop, so he grew up around pizza. He, dragged his mom to all the Turtles movies, bought all the toys and all that stuff, and so when he started, and we'd been friends with Ciro before he got the gig on the Turtles, and when he was asked to go in and pitch it, he said, "This is what I'd do." He said, "I'd take it back to hit the reset button, but I'd take my favorite parts of the black and white series, the animated series, and all that stuff, and create a new foundation, a new universe to tell stories in." And I thought it was genius, and I thought he did a fantastic job. And it's very funny, and it's very detailed, and it's a neat series. And I mean, it's very similar to what we did at Tom Waltz and originally conceived. And brought me in later. It was Tom Waltz conceived the same basic concept for the IDW series, is that he grew up as a huge fan of all the initial versions of the Turtles, and he was asked to pitch a concept to Nickelodeon, because Nickelodeon wanted the comic series to be much edgier than the other versions, actually, again, sort of go back to the edginess of some of the earliest Turtle issues. He pitched the same idea. He said, I want to pick my favorite parts of the black and white series, the animated series, and Tom built this incredible foundation to tell, I think, some of my favorite stories, Turtle stories. I relate them as special and important, and I love them as much as the original series that Peter and I did. So it's been fantastic. So, yes.
What is your favorite Turtle story at this point? I mean, it's been adapted into so many mediums, so many stories by different people. What is the favorite one for you?
Well, I think in comics, at least, I'd say one of the favorites that comes to mind right away was Turtles number 8, which was the Cerebus Turtles crossover, and I created this character, Renat, this time-traveling kind of sort of ditzy sorcerer's apprentice. It's sort of a combination of Mickey Mouse as the sorcerer's apprentice to some of the Valley Girl stuff to just having this ditzy person with a good heart that comes back and gets the Turtles, and it was a way to the idea of doing a Turtles Cerebus crossover had been on my mind for a long time, and I pitched Dave Sim, and he gave the thumbs up, and so I came up with a story, and Peter and I wrote the basic concept, did the layouts, and Peter and I sort of cobbled that together, and Dave approved it, and we did that. But it was a really funny, it was a 45-page story. But that was one of my favorites up until, one of my favorite sequences was the final 3 issues Peter and I did in the series, which was the Leonardo one-shot that led into Turtles 10 and 11, which was, and Turtles 11 was the last official Turtle book that Peter and I did together, as sitting down and writing and drawing it together. After that, it was like we'd get together to brainstorm ideas, and I'd pencil some, and he'd do this, and it was, a little bit more disjointed. So I think that sequence was great. And it was great to see a lot of that stuff incorporated into the first movie, which should be my second favorite. As an entertainment medium, the first Turtle movie was my favorite version, outside the comics till now. But I'll tell you that, compared to the new Nickelodeon series and the new IDW series right now, it's a whole renaissance, and I'm just having such a great time being part of that those whole new universes and stuff. So awesome. Yeah, I think we can do one more question each, and that'll be. Is that cool?
Okay.
Sure. Okay.
One more question around. I guess the big question I've got right now is, with the new Ninja Turtles movie coming, and with that trailer that came out, the fact that it received about 40 million views in the time that it's been out, what do you feel about the reception it's getting from the fans?
It's always. I have the advantage of the new movie that I've seen the script, I've seen what they're doing, what they're developing, where they want to take the story, and the attitude is going to be. So I think that the reaction is, we actually were very scared of, related to this, we were very scared to the development of the animated series, because it was like, it was Donatello had a gap in his tooth and his personality was slightly different, and Raphael had sort of restilled that, but there was a look and a style and things, and the origin had changed a little bit. That was received really well, and then when we developed the IDW series, we changed some pretty major things, like April naming the turtles as opposed to Splinter, taking April back to the lab, Raphael being separated out initially when they were first exposed, after they were exposed to the ooze. There was some key elements that we thought we'd messed with, the reincarnation aspect, and unfortunately it was just the overall to the series was received so well. So both we had those behind us. So when Leavesman and Platinum Dunes had developed the movie, we looked at this, this long history of, you look at the Mark Bodie Turtles from the comics, the Michael Zulli Turtles, which probably looked the most like the movie Turtles. We had so many different versions and so many different feelings on them. I felt that, yes, the look was, they're bigger, they're stronger, they're this, they have a different facial structure, but I think once you get past and see them moving around and leaping around and doing all the stuff that they're going to do in the movie, I think and I hope that the fans will get past it and enjoy the movie for what the story is going to be. But there seems to be, a lot of people just seem to really hate Michael Bay for some reason. And so I think, if he walked around and personally gave them money each, they'd still say it was not enough or something. I don't know. There's something there. But I think that the movie as a whole is something the fans are going to enjoy, they're going to like. I love what I've seen, and, I'm probably closer to it than all of them. But yeah, it's scary, and that's the thing. Like you talked about the Avengers and those kind of things. Fans do not want you to mess with their childhood. Right down to half the people coming through, more than half the people coming through and getting autographs today. Said thank you for my childhood. So it's very personal to them, and if you mess with it too much, I think it's going to be a big problem. So I hope it comes together the way I believe it's going to come together, and it'll be a good experience, and people will dig it. So.
Why the sewers as the Turtles' home, and have you ever seen inside a New York City sewer? Do you know what that looks like in there?
Here's the funny part. When we did the first issue of the Turtles, I think Pete had been to New York once. I've never been to New York City ever. The closest my experience to New York City was whatever I've seen on TV, or mostly in Marvel and DC Comics. This idolized version of Gotham, Metropolis, New York City. So I've never seen the inside of a sewer, what it looked like. So I could only imagine. And at the same time, the idea was we had to get them in the sewer to give them a safe place to survive. We had this idea of a rat and a mentor. We had a bit of the Daredevil origin story, which rolled into the Turtles origin story. And it just seemed to be like a good starting place for them to create this safe haven. And if the 4 turtles end up down in the sewer, and you're looking for a mentor that is also going to be mutated, rats are everywhere down there. That was where we came up with this. Again, prefacing all of it with, we never thought anybody would buy the first issue, so we just said, well, we'd do whatever we want. It's a comic. But you also look back to issues of the Fantastic Four with the Mole Men, and just the stuff that came out of wherever it came out of, and you just go there and hope for the best. It was pretty funny, and also I remember like some of the early interviews when Turtles were becoming successful, even the Cartoon and Toys, well, the number one question they'd always ask is, you must be a black belt, you must be a martial artist. And it's like, well, if the becoming a martial artist includes watching Bruce Lee movies over and over again, the David Carradine Kung Fu TV series, and growing up in Maine when we finally got cable, Boston used to run this Chopsaki Theater on Saturdays for like 2 hours, 3 hours, and I'd be there watching. So that's about all the martial arts experience I had. So I was writing, drawing the issue of the Turtles with Peter, having never been to New York, having never done martial arts, having never done this, so it was completely made up. So we were having a blast.
Of all the thousands of characters created in this world, what is it? What's your theory on why it is that this group, the TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so passionately hit with such a large fan base?
I think it's a familiar place in a number of ways. In that, again, when I grew up, the X-Men were a bunch of misfits that became a family. You had, the Avengers and other superhero groups, Fantastic Four and that stuff. So you have this family element to them. I think is one of the components. And with the Turtles, because they weren't, black, white, Asian, or anything, race specific, if you will, they were these mutated teenagers, and they were misfits that became a family. And I think that was one of the things that I think helped a lot of people identify with them, and that you could be any race or anything, and you could still love Michelangelo, you could still love Donatello, you could still love them for what they are, because they were misfits in their family. And I think that when you look at the kids on the schoolyard, you find, I remember when I was in grade school and high school, I was heavy, goofy kid that read comic books, and so I was sort of stuck in the corner with a bunch of other guys, so it was 4 of us that we used to hang out together, and that was what we did. But that was our safe zone in our family. So I think it was something they could identify with. And the same, like you look at the fan base for like the X-Men. I mean, it's like everybody sort of identifies with different characters, and I think it's that was sort of the at the heart of it. And they wanted to be teenagers first, but life kept getting in the way, and I think people could relate to that too. It's like they'd rather hang out and play video games or whatever and eat pizza, but there's always something messing and interfering with their life, like all of our lives. And the final element, I think, is at the end, when you need to stand up and be the hero. The Turtles would try their best and stand up to be the hero, and I think in all of us, we all want to be the one that saves the day. We want to be the Indiana Jones. We want to be that character that does the right thing and saves the damsel in distress and saves the day or whatever. And I think that component, it's like a very simple, misfit hero story. And I think that's at the heart of it. And my son has eaten the new Kraft macaroni turtle cheese. Have you seen the one with the vanilla ice?
Yes, it's a good commercial.
Yeah, it just came out.
So happy.
No, literally,
You
it was
have
like
no idea.
within the last month. They started running in the States.
When that got pulled from the shelves, I literally cried. It's so delicious.
When people ask sometimes, like, what's the worst turtle item licensed? And we did, and it was like, to me, it was, they did these turtle moon pies. It was like this half a pastry thing that had green ooze filling with this kind of green topping on it. And I don't know how many kids come up and say, people today go, oh man, I love those. And like, those were disgusting. Those are awful. But it was funny. So, but yeah, turtle macaroni and cheese is back on the shelf. So. And check out the Vanilla Ice commercial. It's actually pretty funny. He's literally stocking the shelves with the macaroni and cheese, and a mom comes up and recognizes him and starts doing "Go Ninja, Go Ninja, Go." And the kid's going, like, rolls his eyes and walks away. Yes, sir.
So you touched on it earlier, and your passion for your idols and the earlier creators is obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any more plans for the Words and Pictures Museum? I know it's on the web, but
And it's on the Words of Picture. It's on the web, but it really hasn't been updated and done. We haven't done much with it, and I think that was I put kind of so much into that, not only time and energy and money, and it was a dream. I always felt like if I build it, they will come. And locally where I built it in this neat little town of Northampton, Mass. There's 9 colleges in the area, and there's a lot of kids and young adults and parents, and they help support after I built it, they help support the basic community, but the comics community at large really didn't care that much for it, and it wasn't that important to them. And I think a lot of them just were worrying about getting the next page done so they can make a living. And so when I decided to close it because I just couldn't afford to continue it going, I always said, well, if I ever win the lottery, if I ever get really successful again, I'll once again put my money where my mouth is and create something that is probably a little bit more financially realistic to make it exist and become a gathering place and something that showcases it as art again. But it was sad to see the physical space go because it was a fantastic place to go. So maybe one day, if I'm lucky, I'll do it again. So maybe somebody else that hits it big, maybe they'll do it and I'll help. So yes.
With some of the earlier issues of the Turtles, you and Peter would throw in names of some of your buddies on billboards and diners and stuff like that. Right? Do you ever have someone that would call up when the new issue came out and like, dude, that's my name in there?
A little bit. It was sort of, Peter and I put ourselves as two thugs in the KC series, and we'd put different friends in there and stuff, and like that. We'd do that behind, but it almost got to be like, we almost started doing it too much, and so, but yeah, we'd get that reaction, and actually one of my favorite parts, one of the cool things I signed at the show was one of the guys that wrote a fan letter to the Turtles, and like you got this fan letter published in issue 4 of the Turtles. So he came by and had it, made me sign the page that he did it, which was cool that they were around then. So, but yeah, it was fun to do that, and it's related to the fun we have now, like taking like in the new IDW series, like what we've done with the Neutrinos, and bringing in Bebop and Rocksteady again, and sort of doing our own spin. It's sort of like giving a new life to those old characters that deserve another pass and another interesting take. So that's fun these days. So. Yes.
Is there a comic book project lurking in the back of your head that you've always wanted to work on that haven't had a chance to?
It's what immediately comes to mind is one of the comics that growing up, and I think that directly related to the interest of animals, mutant animals, was Commandy. When I was growing up in Maine, I had a paper route. I was, every week I'd ride to the store with my paper route money, waiting for the next issue of Commandy to come out, because that was a movie when, as a movie when I was a kid that my sister took us to, that she wasn't supposed to take us to, and the one theater that's like 14 miles away was, growing up in Maine, was Planet of the Apes, and that just blew my mind. It was like, and then here comes Commandy, sort of where Jack Kirby took that Planet of the Apes concept and built it in this whole world of animals and mutants and all that stuff. So that was a big thing, and I think that if I could do like a Commandy book or even a Turtles Commandy crossover, that would probably be a dream project for me. And then I've always been a huge fan of Daredevil, and that's I was a fan of Daredevil before when Bob Brown was drawing it and Gene Colan was drawing it, and I still remember Roger McKenzie's run, and they introduced this new penciler in 158, Frank Miller, and then it was one of those things that I still bought it faithfully, even though it might not have been as strong as comic as I wished it could have been. And I just remember watching for the next 30 issues, like Frank Miller pretty much blow everybody's mind, including mine. And so Daredevil would be an awesome project. So I do. So. Awesome. Is that good, guys?
Yeah. Kevin, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Game on. Don't worry. We have all the codes.
111-1111. Damn. 111-1112. Damn. 111-1113.
You're listening to Game On.
Oh, yes. 8675309. That's it. No, wait, that's not it. Damn you, Tommy Two-Tone!